Programming in C# and ASP.NET. This is Mr. Wilson, your instructor and guide as we take a closer look at programming in C# and ASP.NET. CS ASP 019 Debugging Basics. Let's go to Visual Studios.
Hey there, gang. What we're going to do now is I want to take a little bit and kind of take a step back and talk a little bit about debugging in the systems that we use when we need to handle problems with our code. And all of you now have had some kinds of problems with your code, or you've had to figure something out or figured out why it was doing it. A lot of times you probably had an error message, and the error said, hey, there's something wrong with your code, and you had to figure that out. And that's one kind of error. Another kind of error that's probably more sneaky and harder to deal with is when it's a logic error. So two kinds of errors. One of them is a syntax error. I wrote something incorrectly. I left a semicolon off. Those are usually pretty easy because the computer, well, not easy, but easier in the fact that Visual Studio says, hey, this doesn't look right. And so you probably need to do something different here. So that's one type of error. And then the other kind of error is actually a logic error, an error in our code in what we're doing. So for example, I have a little program that I've just put together here. There's three text boxes that I've put here, and I've given them height, width, and length, like we're trying to figure the dimensions of a cube. And then I've got a button that says figure dimensions, and then I've got a label here. So what we want to do is I want to go in and I want to do a little work with these. So you can go ahead and build these. These boxes are just called text 1, text 2, and text 3. And this label is, I called it answer label. And then of course our button. So let's just go over here. If you need to stop me for a second, go ahead and build this. Click your figure dimensions button, and that will bring you over here. And so I'm just going to leave that code up there for a few, just a little bit. And so I want you to go through and type all of that code out the way it is. Okay? So I'll just stop for a second. You guys go ahead and do that. Okay, you can stop me and you can go on and do that. And so, for example, we've got some code here. It does something. It's supposed to help us figure the dimensions of a cube, and there's some built-in errors in this code. This code is nonsense. It doesn't really do anything. It's just for us to kind of test some of our debugging skills on. So if you've written this all out correctly, yours will not work in the same way mine won't work either. So if we were to go ahead and build this solution, it will give us, it builds successfully. So build successfully. And if we were to go ahead and run this, it will run, and it gives me this box. Height, look, there's already a number in there. I didn't really want it to do that, but it did. So let's do something simple. If we're going to figure the dimensions, let's say that the height is 10, the width is 10, and the length is 10. And so what it should do is it should take 10 times 10 times 10, and then divide that by 3 and give us the area of our cube. And if we click this, ooh, I don't think 166 was the answer we were looking for. So let's say you've built a little project and your client comes back and says, hey, this isn't working. What are the ways that I can figure out what's going on inside my program and come up with ways to fix that? Okay, so I'm going to go back here. I'm going to stop debugging, stop my program. I'm going to come back over here, and you know, one of the things that I'm not real sure about is, gosh, we've got this, we know that this text.text, that's where that, where I was getting that, that information in the box. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to comment that out for now. But here's where I know somewhere in this mess of code there's something that is incorrect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to establish a breakpoint. I highlighted this area and I clicked over here in the gray area. That's one way to be able to put in a breakpoint. The other way to put in a breakpoint, let me delete that breakpoint, is I could, I can come over here and I can right click this position and I can say breakpoint and insert breakpoint, and it brings me up a breakpoint. What's a breakpoint, Mr. Wilson? Well, a breakpoint is a way for us to be able to control our code, to be able to control the speed of the execution of the code, and also allow us to look at the inside mechanism of what's going on in our code. What's inside that variable? What's inside that string? So now we can kind of look at this and be able to see those things. All right, so I've got a breakpoint in here. You only use breakpoints when you're debugging. You make sure you get rid of all of those when you actually use your program, of course. Okay, so I'm going to click run, and so my program will start to run, and so here it is, and it is running. So we come in here, and once again I put in my test figures, 10, 10, and 10, and then I click the figure dimensions. All right, so now notice what's happened. As I click that, my program looks like it has ceased to run, but it isn't. It's still in the active memory, but it is stopped right here. So right now it is stopped there. You can see over here it says call stack. This is the memory, and we haven't talked about the different kinds of memory, but that's where it is residing right now. And there's a little arrow saying, hey, this is the point that I'm at. Okay. If I was to come down here, and notice I can do this during debugging, and I hold over that A, notice it says that A right now is 0. So I can check what my variables equal. All of those A, B, and C are now 0, and answer is 0. I can pin those out here. Notice how I did that. I just came over here. I'm going to close that out here again. I hovered over it, I slide down to it, and I can pin it. And now I can watch what happens to it as I go through my program. But I don't really need to do that at this point. Let's just let's go on through. If you notice up here across the top, some of the things that have changed. Once again, we have that regular stop debugging. We also have the restart button. Those are there. We have the continue button. But we also have the step into. But the step over is what takes me to the next line of code. I use this button quite a bit when we're going through and doing this. So I click that button, and notice what happened. It went right past these. It started these, but it went ahead and jumped ahead. And so now I can look at these once again, and it will tell me that they are still equal to 0. Nothing's happened to them, but I've gone to the next line of code. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I click that, and notice now it says it has highlighted a equals int.parse with text1.text, okay? And it even tells me the amount of time that has elapsed as I did this. And down here it tells me that A is equal to 0, okay? Because it hasn't executed this line of code, but it's ready to execute this line of code, okay? And so, so it's waiting, and it's saying, hey, when you're ready, I'm ready. And so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to execute that. And notice it's moved from A to that next line of code from 27 to 28, okay? And now it's ready to execute this line of code. But I can also now go down here and I can look at the values of what has happened. Systems window 10, that was the string that it brought into here. It did this. It did a int parse and returned 10. So it took that string of 10 and changed it into the number of 10, returned it to text1.text, and here it is. It has changed that in there. So now, if I look down here, notice A is in red, and basically that's telling us the last line of code changed the value in that variable, and now A is equal to 10 instead of 0. Notice B is still 0 because we haven't run this line of code yet, okay? So we've seen that it's doing something, and here's what it's doing. And I know lots of times you may have gotten frustrated wondering what's going on inside my program. Well, this is how we get inside of it and check. Okay, we're going to come up here, we're going to say step over. We could also push the F10 button, and it goes ahead and makes another change. Well, let's see. We can look down here and see what's red. It took 10 from there, it came out here, and oh, look, B is equal to 5, not equal to 10. Well, that's because if we go back and look at this line of code on 28, there's a divided by 2 in there. And that is an error that is in our code, and it's causing us to get a 5 instead of a 10. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to get rid of that line of code, okay? Right there, okay? So it's gone, so that's no longer going to be something that's going to cause us a problem. If this was long lines of code and lots of information, I would probably just comment it out in case it is something I really need and there was a reason why we did it. As of right now, we're just going to get rid of that, okay? So then we come down here, and now it's ready to run C. There is an error right here on this line also. Hopefully you can see what that is. It says text.2 instead of text.3. Oh, and it says, hey, text.3 doesn't exist. What are you trying to do there? Well, if I come back over here to my, oh, I can't do it yet. I'll have to do it when we come back, okay? So we'll have to leave it for 2 now. At the end, we'll go and we'll fix that. That box is not listed as text. It's listed as something else. So there's an error right there of what we really actually want it to be, okay? All right. So let's go ahead and we click this. It comes up here. We know that A is 10 and B is now 50 because it's taken A and it's going to take it times 10 and times C, which is 10, and divided by 3, which Now, our answer, it says, is 166, which we know is incorrect. So we'll fix these couple of little things. But more important, it's not important for this code to work perfectly. It's more important for us to see how we can see inside of it and what's going on inside of our program, okay? So hopefully this helps you out to be able to trace how your program's doing, the logic and the mathematics in your program, and some of those things, okay? And so if we go ahead and hit this one more time, it comes down to here, and it skips the catch because it says, hey, I could do that up there under the try. If it was a bad error, it would have sent that error message in the catch phrase there, error 44, answer is unknown, which of course is not a 44 error, but that's just, I thought I'd throw that in there. Okay, so hopefully you feel comfortable now with this. How do I get rid of this? I can temporarily do it just by doing that, or I can come back up in here and I can say delete breakpoint, and that will get rid of the breakpoint altogether. And then luckily Visual Studios gives us all that other great information to tell us what our variables are and what they're doing, and this is a great way for us to be able to debug our program. Okay, so hopefully you feel better about that, and you know that this code, of course, was just not important, but just for us to be able to look at how to use breakpoints and how to look at how variables change and what they do and what's in a string and all that kind of good stuff. Okay? All right. Let's go back to our slides.
Our next video is CS ASP 020 string formatting. I look forward to seeing you there.